everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Table Talk Sessions, the True Crime Chronicles. Table Talk Sessions is about having authentic conversations, so I hope that by sharing some of these crimes or cases that it will generate not only conversations, but being more cognizant to the relationships and friendships that we entertain, and of course, watching for those red flags. Welcome to True Crime Chronicles. In today's episode, we'll delve into the tragic and chilling case of Jason Schaefer, a dedicated postal worker whose life was cut short in a calculated act of violence. Join us as we explore the intricate details surrounding his untimely death.
you know, work. I mean, I'm sure you're concerned about his death and you want it investigated fully. You don't want us to sweep anything under the rug.
No, of course not, but
in police investigations, this is like standard 101 stuff. You got to rule out the butler, you got to rule out the ex, you got to rule out the bookie who he owes a lot of money to, and start working it. Could just be a random shooting, but we gotta do our due diligence and figure it out. And our cases are reviewed by the DA's office, and they want us to do it right. People have a lot of pressure on us, making sure that we do the right thing. And so I don't want to do anything, because the case is so serious, I don't want to do anything to violate your rights, anything like that. So everyone that
my rights and my son's rights were violated when you took him from school and did not contact me.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk to you about. So let me read you your rights, just so you know what they are.
So, this detective was hilarious. If you watch the full interrogation, he is just like not for any of Devan's shenanigans. He's saying, like, listen, I don't know if it was the butler who did it. I don't know if it was a drug bust gone bad or drug deal gone wrong. He's like basically insinuating we're playing the game of Clue. And right now, I don't know if you're one of the people who we need to be thinking has done it. And so his sarcasm, like this interrogator's sarcasm throughout that whole process of questioning was like funny. And it was like dry wit. Like it was just good to me. Essentially, I'll give you a backstory on her disposition, which she's that way. When I say Devin has an attitude, Devin had an attitude when that interrogator was talking to her, as well as the police officers when she first arrived. But maybe I'll allude to what happened. So in the initial interrogation, when Devin comes into the room, she's like on 100 and she's going off on the police officers and essentially that man as well. And she explains that she was getting phone calls and she was getting text messages from people saying, "Hey, did you hear about that postal worker who was hurt?" Now, Devin's baby father worked as a postal worker. So Jason, he worked as a postal worker as well, the person who is the victim in this story. And so Devin claims that she called the child care center where her son was supposed to be because he's 5 at the time. And he asked the worker at the child care center, like, "Hey, is my son there?" And she says the worker told her yes. Well, truth be known to unbeknownst to Devin, is that the police actually had picked up her son and they had taken him to the police office because they had surveillance footage of her same car at the scene of the crime. So the interrogator explains to Devin because she's like, "I want to see my son. You all did not tell me you checked him out of school. You didn't tell me that you checked him out of his child care center. And I didn't know where he was. And y'all have him. I need to see my child. He's 5." And she's just going off and off and off. And so the police officer is basically telling her, like, "Nah, you can't see him. And you won't be seeing him unless we can determine that you are not the person who harmed the father." So that is the background as to why why I said she was having an attitude and why her disposition was as it was. Now, the interrogator did explain that DSS and their job is to ensure that the child is not harmed. So she was not going to be able to leave necessarily the police station. She was not going to be able to see her child until forensics, or either they had like really ruled out or been able to say she's not the person, although her car was seen at the crime. So, with that in mind, let's dive right into the details. So, just like I've done in previous episodes, I do want to pay homage to the victim because their life was taken at the hands of someone else. And so, we're going to talk about who is or who was Jason Schaefer. So, Jason Schaefer was a 33-year-old postal worker. He was known for his dedication to his job and his role as a loving father. He and Devin shared a 5-year-old son together, and he was committed to providing for his family. Colleagues and friends remember him as being a hard worker and also having a kind heart. And that was clearly depicted when reading the news articles surrounding this particular tragedy. So we're sending homage in regards to Jason Schaefer's family and also for his son, who unfortunately has lost both his mom and father. On October 13th, 2021, in Longmont, Colorado, 33-year-old USPS letter carrier Jason Schaefer was performing his regular mail delivery duties when he was ambushed and fatally shot. This heinous act not only shocked the local community, but also raised pressing questions about the circumstances leading to such a brutal crime. Tensions escalated when Schaefer began a relationship with Devin's younger sister, Rosa, exacerbating existing conflicts. Now, during this period, Schreiner or Devin was also in a relationship with Andrew Ritchie. His name is known as AJ, and you'll see an interview or interrogation with him towards the end of this video. Both Devin and AJ or Andrew harbored deep seated animosity towards um, Jason, essentially because of his romantic involvement in the ongoing custody disputes. Now, police started their investigation by focusing on Jason's personal life. He and his ex girlfriend, Devin, had met while working for the U.S. Postal Service in Colorado, and their son was born in 2015. When you watch the full interrogation and the second interrogator asks how she met Jason, she says that they began dating, I think, in October of 2014. And essentially, after only a few months, like maybe 3 months or so, she got pregnant. They basically tried to work the relationship out, but Jason, according to the mom, alleged that Jason wanted a family. He was excited when she got pregnant. The family was excited, but their values were not the same. And that, when I say they, Devin's values. And also that when she got pregnant and had the baby, she did not want to work. However, Jason felt that they both needed to work to have both incomes to help make things work. So their relationship deteriorated, they broke up, but they tried to co parent, but there was still like conflict amongst that. And so because they could not like get it together, because according to Devin, she really didn't talk to Jason. She said she barely responded to his text messages. So I can imagine what a hot mess it was for him. Essentially, when she was being interrogated by the second interrogator, which is the U.S. Postal Service investigators, she was explaining that they did not have a good relationship and that she did not really talk to him. And so on October the 11th of 2021, just 2 days before Jason was gunned down, he had filed. So Jason had filed for increased custody of his son. And so when the investigators looked through her phone, it was clear that she had received the lawyer's paperwork to her saying that he had sought to increase custody and time with the shared son. So the mom says that just before he was murdered, that Jason had mentioned his girlfriend Rosa was living with him or that they were living together. And she had told her son essentially, like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea because Rosa is Devin's younger sister. And so she told her son, like, you've opened up a bad can of worms here. And so, despite the fact that Devin had her on and off again boyfriend, AJ, Richie, or Andrew, she still was upset. And in the interrogation, you can clearly see that she's upset that they are dating as well. The way that she remarks or has that attitude, you can tell. So let's keep going. Now, just the background on the perpetrator or Devin, she was 26 at the time, and she and Jason shared a son together who was 5 at the time. But during the interrogation, she shared that he was turning 6, like within the week or so. And so she seems to have been upset or jealous because Jason, who was her baby's father, was dating her sister, her youngest sister, Rosa, who was 19. And so, on top of the relationship of her ex and sister, and then also the custody disagreement and conflicts, is why prosecutors and the officers believe that she harmed Jason. Now, AJ, aka Andrew James Ritchie, he's 34, was 34 at the time. He was said to have played a pivotal role in the orchestration of the demise of Jason Schaefer. And so he was noted as acting as a co conspirator along with Devin, because essentially when they had the two being interrogated, Devin's story did not corroborate with AJ's story. And so it kind of fell apart. If you go look at the full interrogation for both of them, their stories did not align. And also, again, AJ was actually married, and he'd been married to his wife for about 13 years, I believe. And she knew about Devin. Not necessarily that they were seeing each other, but in the video that I'll share in a bit, when the police originally went to go interview AJ, he basically was asking if they would like not disclose too much because his wife didn't know that he was having a like current affair with Devin, but she knew about her. Now, although AJ was not physically present at the shooting per se, he clearly was involved and was instrumental into this crime actually happening. Now, his vehicle is seen at some point along the route because it said that he was trying to warn, quote unquote, Jason that Devin was planning on hurting him. And he was trying to like give him a heads up before it happened, allegedly, is what he says happened. Now, in Colorado, this crime of someone being a co conspirator is known as complicity, and complicity means that it's not a separate charge as a secondary person. You literally get charged the same as the main person who is being charged. So if Devin, for example, in this case, is facing first degree murder and she's killing, that means that the co conspirator is being charged the exact same way in Colorado. And I don't think AJ thought this through. So essentially, they get charged the same charges, they get charged the same penalties, especially if they found to be proven true they committed the crime. Now, the big key events are as follows. So, in July of 2021, text messages reveal that Devin and AJ discussed harming Jason and Rosa, expressing deep seated anger and jealousy. And then in October in 2021 is when Jason had filed for an increased custody of their son, which further frustrated Devin. And then 2 days later, October the 13th, 2021, while he was on his mail route, Jason was ambushed, shot 5 times in the face, and then witnesses described the shooter as a hooded figure that was fleeing the scene. However, she parked her vehicle like down the street, but it was later seen on a Ring surveillance camera. Then on October 14th, investigations led to her arrest with evidence including surveillance footage and inconsistent alibis, which pointed to her involvement. So if you look at the full interrogation video of what Devan shared, and you compare it to Archie or Andrew Ritchie or AJ's testament of the timeline, they do not corroborate each other. They do not align whatsoever. So I don't think Devin fully thought this through or Jason fully thought this through because their testimonies were not in agreement. So, subsequent investigations to this case showed evidence that showed AJ did have a role in the crime, and it also revealed that this was premeditated and it was fueled by jealousy and revenge. Now, for example, when AJ was getting interviewed, he's telling the police officers like she mentioned more than one time that she was going to harm him, and she not only said it about him but also herself. And the police officers tell him, like, we have your word saying that, but there's no evidence of that because you didn't text about it. But according to AJ, they basically talked all the time. So AJ was married, but he was basically saying during the day when she was doing her mail route, they were comforting each other through conversation and dialogue. So again, some of the key critical events that we want to just make sure that we pinpoint is that on that Wednesday, um, at around 12:30 noon, there was a report about this ambush and that this person, the mail carrier, had been shot. And now there was a postal worker who helped identify who was shot and knew that it was Jason. And just so happened, they asked the police officers, did the baby mama do it? Which was also crazy. On the screen, there was a picture that she sent via a message of her attire to AJ. And then there also was footage from like the ring cameras, which the interrogator tells Devin, like, hey, I know you think you're smart, but I just want you to know that there's a video and the video looks like your body size, your same stature and everything. The clothes that she was wearing essentially matches the picture they found in the phone, right? Because we have data footprints that there's been collected on our devices. And then also the interrogator like tells her, he was so funny. He's like, in 2025, most stores have a ring camera. So we know that your car was at the location because it caught the license plate. And there are not many vehicles that is your car, same year, nor with that same vehicle tag number. So it looks like it's you. And so when they were asking her the timeline of events of what she'd done through that day, and also the postal office interrogator was basically saying, we have trackers or what they call GPS scanners in the trucks. And it's important too to kind of, it's like a learning curve when I was listening to this about, how they even track their mileage and what route they took to deliver the mail. All of those things are data footprints. And so the interrogators are telling her, like, we are going to get a warrant to be able to go through your phone. We are going to see what happened. And the interrogator from the Postal Service, there were two different sets of people. There was the regular local police who were interrogating her, and then there was the U.S. Postal Service. They have a legit team. He was like forensic, CBI, like all of them are going to check. And so it was like dual prosecution on this girl, and I don't think she like thought this through all the way. So yeah.
Who do you think would have done this to Jason?
I don't know who would have done this to Jason. I don't know his life anymore. I am no longer a part of it. He made that perfectly clear when he decided to, for a lack of better words, sleep with my sister.
So I didn't know that. Okay. Can I talk to you about that, or do you want an attorney?
There's nothing to hide with that either, so I will answer questions about that.
Okay. You're okay answering questions about your sister?
Yes.
Are they dating?
They are
Or
living
they're
together.
sleeping together?
They're definitely sleeping together in front of my son, which is how I found out. I'm a 5-year-old.
Okay. How old's your sister? Is she of age?
19. She
Really?
just turned 19.
Okay. How old are you?
26.
So this is your younger sister?
Yes, this is my baby sister.
How many sisters do you have?
I have, well, there's 4 of us total.
4 of you total? Okay. So Jason was actually, how do you know he was? Because your son said it? Or?
Well, my son did say it, yes. And then when he just moved into a new apartment last month, I think, and he told me that she was going to be moving in with him. She had already been living there, but.
Okay. At the apartment complex, but not with him?
No, with him.
Okay.
She had been living with me at the beginning of this year until the end of June.
Okay.
And then I found out that she not only slept with my ex-boyfriend, but also with my son's dad.
Okay.
And I kicked her out, and I told her she was no longer allowed to live in my house if she was going to be that kind of person.
Okay. So not only did she sleep with Jason, but she slept with another ex-boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the other ex-boyfriend? Somebody you're still dating?
No.
Okay.
We have talked since that incident, but we have not dated.
Okay.
We will not date.
Okay. Was that a long time ago?
That we dated?
Yeah.
It was during like quarantine and stuff like that.
Sorry about that. Okay. You dated this other guy?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need to use the restroom? And then...
I mean, I do.
So when we talked the other night, I told you we were trying to put the timeline together regarding, when you saw her and Devin and all of that. And so really I want to kind of clean up some of the timeline stuff. On Wednesday night, your wife's sitting next to us, and I know it's going to be hard to talk about multiple things. Am I correct?
Yeah, I had to talk to her about it the next day and tell her that I was having a film.
I'm sorry, I missed
I
that.
had to tell her that I was having an affair the next day.
Okay. So she now knows.
She's aware of the affair.
Okay, so and I'm assuming, a couple of things. I figured that was kind of part of it, and that's why I didn't push real hard on Wednesday night. Does that make sense? Again, I kind of told you that in the interview. So we just want to kind of clean up some of the timeline stuff. Obviously, let's just kind of start with you're at Hooters from like 12:30 to like 1:15. Is that about right?
I feel like it's later than that.
Okay,
maybe that's right.
1:45.
I think it's 1:45. Yeah.
Okay. How did you get to Hooters?
Drove on the truck.
Your truck? Okay. The black one, the one that was in the driveway? I think it's Silverado, right? Okay. So you drove your truck there.
I drove myself.
And you were on your phone? You had your phone with you there?
Correct.
Okay. So you remember being there on your phone, and it's your personal, the one that you gave to me, right? So is that, that makes sense. That's your phone, and that's the one that I took, right? Okay. So you got there, you're there, you eat wings, hang out with your buddy Brandon.
Now, the day of the shooting on October 13th, the prosecution claimed that Ritchie and Devan, they started the day together, and that is said to be true when looking at the interrogation video of AJ, not Devan. Devin was very vague in regards to like her timeline to an extent. Like she was not given in like the small details. Whereas when you look at AJ's portion of the interrogation, AJ gave more details. Devin seemed to be trying to protect AJ, being her vague in response, but AJ was like, man, I had to end up telling my wife I was having an affair. And so it was almost like he wasn't throwing her under the bus, but he was, because their timelines did not align at all, like at all. And so essentially they were trying to divert suspicion, but became suspicious because it just didn't make sense. Now, several factors are said to have contributed to the motive behind the crime, because a lot of times, for me, I'm trying to analyze the psychological component, like what are the common tendencies that I'm noticing in these sort or type of cases. So one of them is jealousy, because Devin seemed to be distressed that Jason was dating her younger sister Rosa. Now, if we think about this in a practical sense, who wouldn't be upset per se if your ex-boyfriend was dating your youngest sister, right? So that upset her. Whether or not he was doing it just to be spiteful, meaning Jason was doing it to be spiteful, or if he found himself in love with the younger sister, it is what it is at this point, but that's one motive. The second one being the custody battle, because they knew that Devin had received the paperwork from Jason's lawyer saying that he was asking for more time. And in the interrogation, she shared that they were not on good terms. They barely spoke. The detective asked Devin when the last time they spoke, and she said sometimes Jason would text her and she wouldn't even respond back. So you can tell it was probably toxic. And then lastly is the influence of AJ. Now, Andrew, aka AJ, was married, but when I think about the timeline when he was talking to the officers, he basically was saying he and his wife had been married for like 12 plus years. But also, Devin shared that they've known each other for a little over 12 years. And so AJ said, my wife doesn't like Devin. And so, I'm sure the wife had an inkling, but maybe not to the extent of how much they were seeing each other, and to the degree that here we're looking at a crime where someone was killed because of the relationship. Now, in this case, the jury had 5 days worth of testimony before they were able to go back and deliberate. It took them about 8 hours before they returned with their verdict. Now, again, in Colorado, the way that it works is if the current or the primary person is convicted, then the co conspirator, the person who cooperates and collaborated, schemed with the person, they will receive the same sentence. Okay. So, because these charges that came in this particular case carried mandatory sentencing of life in prison without the possibility of parole, when the jury came back, they found Devin guilty. Okay. And the evidence that backed that up was the digital footprints, which forensics or the interrogator told Devin, like, hey, we're getting a court order and we're going to know if your phone aligns with where you say you were. And it didn't. I mean, she was all over the place if you look at her interrogation in comparison to AJ. Like, their stories of the timeline did not match. AJ says that he dropped her off at work, he picked her up from work, basically said that she was only at his house for like 10 minutes. When you go and watch her interior interrogation, she talks about she was at his house like an hour and a half, told what they ate and everything. But when AJ is asked, what did they eat? He's like, she didn't eat. She just had some water. So they didn't have their story together. And so the digital footprint, there was surveillance footage where it showed her body stature, had her car, the Nissan, and the license plate at the scene of the crime. And so essentially, they found Devin guilty of first degree murder. She was sentenced to life of imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And because Devin received that sentencing, her co conspirator, AJ, received the exact identical sentencing for having direct involvement. Now, with that in mind, I just wonder what that felt like hearing that guilty for both of them, only because the day that this happened, the son lost both his mom and his father. Now, his mom is alive physically because she's in jail or prison, but he literally lost both of his parents. And then also thinking about AJ's family, his children lost a father. And the wife subsequently lost her spouse. Just thinking about, there was not really a win all around. Just crazy. Now, if you made it this far, awesome. Thank you so much for following along on this journey. And just kind of let me know, what are your thoughts in regards to this situation in particular, trial or true crime, passion of crime. I do want to leave off with my norm, which is a question. Do you believe that the tragic outcome could have been prevented if the underlying issues, such as jealousy or the custody disputes, had been addressed differently? Now, me personally, I think that Devin was not at a capacity to process or emotionally regulate herself to process what was happening before her eyes. When you look at the interrogation interview, she says that she was upset about not being able to be with her child. Later on, it segues into she was upset because Rosa, her sister, and Jason were living together and all the things. Now, I don't necessarily think or know if Jason purposely was dangling dating her sister in her face, but I will say it wasn't in a good taste, right? Wasn't a good taste. But with that in mind, I think it also is a good reminder to be mindful of who you procreate with, who you have a child with, because in this instance, there are several children who are missing one or both of their parents. And then also taking into account of the matter of influence, because AJ decided to go along with the idea of hurting Jason. He now is serving a life sentence because they both received the exact same sentencing. So I don't think neither of them fully thought this through. Now, looking at it from the lens of Devin and hearing about, her father having sexual abuse allegations or assault allegations, allegedly, sometimes I think trauma can go along with people. And so I don't know what Devin has endured or gone through. What I do know is that a lot of times when I'm watching these true crime or court cases, I'm looking at the psychological component, and that chick was out of sorts. She was not there, but there. Like, she killed someone point blank and was basically monotoned, was emotionless, like seriously upset with that young man. But I mean, not just her. Looking at AJ's interview, it was the same. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Thanks for hanging out with me on today. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I hope you stay tuned for the next one. Until next time.